Hello and welcome to Conversations. I'm Robin, your host, and our guest today is Congressman Kevin Yoder. Kevin Wayne Yoder is a Republican member of the United States House of Representatives for the Kansas 3rd Congressional District. Representative Yoder is a fifth-generation Kansan who grew up on a grain and livestock farm in rural Kansas near a town called Yoder. Hello, Congressman. Thank you for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Well, good. First of all, I want to ask you something significant, of grave importance, something that we have in common. Your birthday is?
January 8th.
Okay. I knew that. My birthday is January 9th, so we have a little bit of something in common.
We got it.
Besides being both Kansans, we have that in common.
Our birthdays are both about 2 weeks after Christmas, which means we don't get as many gifts.
Well, I used to didn't till I started buying my own.
There you go.
So now I get plenty. Tell us about growing up in the town near Yoder, which happens to be your last name.
Well, I grew up near Yoder, Kansas.
Okay.
It's a very, very small unincorporated town near Hutchinson.
Okay.
And I grew up on a grain and livestock farm. We had wheat and corn and soybeans, milo. We had cattle, pigs, chickens, sheep. We had the whole deal.
Wow.
And it was a wonderful experience. Growing up on a farm is a great way to, I think, grow up in the United States. And so I learned a lot about, farm values and hard work and determination and, the sort of bread and butter of the United States. And then from there, I went on to Lawrence, Kansas, where I got degrees at the University of Kansas. Go Jayhawks. And,
that's right.
That's right. And I was there for undergrad and law school. And then following college, I moved to Overland Park.
Okay.
And that's where my wife and I live here in the metro area. And so I've had a chance to live in very different parts of Kansas and get a chance to appreciate all of them. But my childhood was certainly very special because I think just growing up on a farm, not as many people do that these days.
No, they don't.
A lot of folks whose parents or grandparents might have, or they visited someone on a farm, but to grow up that way was certainly a very special way to grow up.
Okay. Do you visit there often?
I do. My grandmother is still living. She's 101 years old.
Wow.
And she raised my dad on the same farm he raised me on. So it's been in the family for several generations.
Wow.
And so I go out and visit her often. She's very sharp and witty still. And we go and play Scrabble or watch, Lawrence Welk show or something, whatever she wants to do. And we talk about the values that she had growing up on the farm herself. You look at that generation, they grew up during the Great Depression, during the Dust Bowl, and you really get an appreciation for the hard work and determination that built Kansas, that they didn't have much, they didn't ask for much, and they worked hard, they saved money, and they left a better life for their kids and grandkids. That was the American dream. And so as we're in these tough economic times now, I look at my grandmother's life as an example of what built this country and the values that she utilized. If we can get back to those values of hard work and saving and free enterprise, the entrepreneurs, the chance for anybody in this country to realize the American dream that generation built and built this country. I think we can get back to those values. We can, I think, rebuild the future for this nation.
What kind of things have changed about then and now?
Well, I certainly think that we've taken on a lot of national debt since then. Our federal government has, I think, moved towards more programs, more social programs, more government bureaucrats, larger federal agencies, and it's all come together in a huge national government that borrows over $1 trillion a year. And to put that in perspective, we now owe $16 trillion total and growing by about $1 trillion a year. So in 10 years, we're prepared to maybe owe about $25 trillion. We borrow about $4 billion a day out of about 40,000 a second. So every second of this interview, the federal government borrowed 40,000 on our behalf. And so getting that under control is a huge issue. And I think it speaks to a change in values that we have. We just have a lot more debt and spending in this country now.
For the uninformed, why is that?
Well, I think that as our country's become more prosperous, we've decided to do more things for people and grow programs more. And I think ultimately that robs folks of their ambition and their determination. I asked Grandma, so what did you, during the Dust Bowl, what did you have to do? What was I said, well, we had to get up earlier and work harder and take more cream to market, and we knew that if we didn't get up and work, we weren't going to eat. We weren't going to be able to provide for our kids and so I think that as our country has changed some and we've gotten to a credit card mentality, that we've lost some of those values, and I think we want to get back to those. And that's not to say there aren't some great things that happen. We have much better schools than we had back in those days. Our education's better. We have a stronger safety net. We take care of people more, but we're going to have to be more selective, I think, in some of the programs going forward because we've grown too much.
What kinds or what types of programs do you think we can do without?
Well, I think we ought to, first of all, really attack the federal bureaucrats in Washington, D.C., the overspending there. We continue to add bureaucrats. We continue to grow federal agencies. We have new departments forming all the time, each with a director and an assistant director and a scheduler and a secretary. And I mean, you just add all these folks, and we pay the bills.
Right.
We pay all the taxes that go to these folks. And so, I think limiting, reducing the bureaucratic waste, the inefficiencies in Washington D.C. Is a great first start. I believe we're going to have to look at all areas of government, though, and that means even in our defense spending. I spent some time working in the Pentagon before I was in the state legislature, and even there's inefficiencies, and we can make reductions in spending in a way that can still keep our troops safe and defend our borders. And so, I think that's an area. And then certainly, the big issue right now is what to do about some of our big social programs that have grown larger than they've ever been in history.
Which ones are those?
So we're talking about Medicare. We're talking about Social Security. We're talking about Medicaid. Our folks in Washington are now, the trustees of these programs say that they're going to go bankrupt in the next upcoming years, and this is part because Washington's not managed the programs over the years, which is a disappointment to many, and it's also because of the changing demographics of our country. People are living longer. Life expectancy is longer. The healthcare costs have gone up significantly since when we created these programs, and so. We have to look for a way to reform them. The typical Medicare recipient pays in about $140,000 in Medicare over their life, and they might take out $350,000 or more as a typical recipient. And so that just can't balance in that way. We have less people working. We have less people working, more seniors on retirement. And so, the options we're looking at, first of all, we can't change benefits for folks that are retired. We can't change folks that are at or near the retirement age. They've paid into the system. Because of their expectancy, they're going to receive benefits they were promised. And so, when you're dealing with seniors, the last thing you want to do is give them any fear that we might change their Social Security or Medicare. Let me tell you, my grandma's 101. She'd wring my neck if I messed with her Social Security. Yeah, and so I think we need to really assure seniors that if you're already retired or you're near the retirement age, we can't make any changes to those programs because we made a commitment. But I think for folks that are in their 20s and 30s and 40s, we ought to look at ways that we can change these programs going forward so that they are more balanced and financially sound, which will have some great impacts. First of all, it will allow us to guarantee the benefits for seniors. If we fix them for the next generation, it means that the program becomes more solvent, which means that we can very strongly assure seniors that we won't ever have to touch their benefits. So that's one. A second issue is we actually save the programs. Once they go bankrupt, they become very hard to continue to function. And so by modifying them for folks that are in their 30s and 40s and even maybe young 50s, we can fix these programs. We can ensure that they'll exist for the next generation, so we can save them. And then finally, we balance the budget because by modifying these programs, we can control the cost and bend the cost curve of these programs that are spiraling out of control. And so we've got to do it in a way that doesn't change these programs that people, I think, hold so dear and they count on, but we've also got to fix them. And so there's some reforms we've looked at in the House. There are a limited number of options. Some people talk about raising the retirement age. Some people about raising the taxes that are involved with those programs. We've looked at reforming them in a way that might means test them, meaning that the rich would receive less benefits, the poor would receive more benefits, so that maybe you don't get as much Social Security or Medicare if you're well-to-do.
Are these modifications? Do they include any private accounts?
I don't know that that's the way we go. I think we focus more on keeping the programs in the way in which they are organized, but making changes to the way the we structure the programs
Okay.
so that they're more effective going forward.
Okay. Let's switch gears. Talk about immigration.
Okay.
Are you for the DREAM Act or against the DREAM Act?
I don't support the DREAM Act.
Okay.
What I support is immigration reform
Okay.
that really hits on three principles. Number one, I think our number one principle is we have to guard and secure our national border.
Right.
We are a sovereign nation. We have to be able to control who comes in and out of our country.
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah. It just doesn't make sense that we call
Right.
ourselves a sovereign nation, but people can come in and out. And,
Right.
and we're not just talking about folks that may be coming here to build a better life for the family. We're talking about terrorists can come in and out. I mean, we don't know who comes through our borders. So we've got to do a much better job at securing the borders. And that means whether it means fencing and technology or personnel, but we've got to get that job done first. I think the second issue is that once, right now what happens is folks, if they can find their way through our border, if they can get through the gauntlet and the maze and they're not arrested or they're not stopped by border agents, then we sort of say, well, you're here, so we're going to try to take care of you. And I just think that's wrong, because I think it sends the wrong message to the folks we're trying to say they need to respect our immigration laws. And so I don't support giving new benefits to illegal immigrants or undocumented immigrants, because I think we need to respect and work within a legal immigration process.
Right.
And so I think the third point is then we need a much better legal system. Part of the
I was
reason
going to ask you, the Southwest states seem to have the most issue or problems
Right.
with the immigrants coming over.
Right.
So were they not
And they've tried to take,
protecting the
and they tried to
borders?
take Arizona, for example, has
I
tried to
remember,
take
yes.
the reins here, and our federal government's suing them to stop them from enforcing the border.
Yes.
And so, we have party divisions, we have state federal divisions, and I think ultimately the American people are losing as our immigration system really works for no one. It doesn't work for those states. It doesn't work for agencies that have to respond. What is a public school supposed to do when they don't know who's here, who isn't?
What is
it's
the
very
state
difficult.
supposed to do?
Right.
How do we protect the borders?
That's right. And so they feel like they're wide open, they're not protected. And so that's why I think number one is we have to protect that border, and that's got to be a much bigger priority. We have to quit turning a blind eye to immigrants who come in illegally and saying, well, you got here, so we're going to give you benefits. I think third of all, then we need a better legal system that supports a good legal immigration system. That means worker visas, that means education visas. There are many folks around the world that simply want to come to the United States to make a better life for their families. They want to realize the American dream. And frankly, that's what this country's made of folks that came here from around the world that wanted to realize a better life for their kids and grandkids.
To go around it the right way, the legal
That's
way,
right.
and
So
become citizens.
we want the United States to be a beacon of hope and opportunity around the world, and we want the best and brightest here in our country. And I think that's what's missing maybe in some of this debate, and people kind of split into camps, Democrat, Republican, anti-immigration, pro-immigration, all that.
Right.
I think we ought to be anti-illegal immigration and pro a good, responsible legal immigration system. Look, frankly, part of the reason we can't solve the illegal immigration process is because we haven't had a good legal system. And so, I think folks decide ultimately that it's a lot easier to come in illegally because they can come right in, the borders aren't secured. Once they get here, they're going to receive benefits. And if they try to go the legal route, it may take them forever. And so I think we have the incentives completely backwards. We need to flip those, put the incentives and support on the legal side while clamping down on and protecting from our side from the illegal immigrants. And I think that three-step approach can solve the immigration system in our country.
Okay. All right. Let's go back to protecting the borders.
Okay.
I still want to know, how can we do it? We have the border police there. They have the fence. What's wrong?
Well,
what's going wrong?
I think there's a multiple. There are things that do work better than others. You have to have multiple fencing. In that you can't just have a fence. I think because you build a 6-foot fence, someone brings a 7-foot ladder. You build a 10-foot fence. People are going under. As well, they're tunneling under. Humans are very resourceful when it comes to figuring out a way in and out of
and that,
through
of
those
course,
borders.
is more
So
cost.
it's very tough, and so I think we're going to need to beef up fencing. I think we're going to need to beef up technology and personnel, and I just think we need to put additional resources on the border to show that it is a priority, and that combined with the other two items I mentioned, I think will lessen the interest of people coming across the border illegally because they're not going to receive benefits and services once they get here. So what's the point of coming through? They won't be able to work here. They won't, and then providing a legal system will also lessen the incentive of coming in illegally. And I think if you can narrow it down to the folks who truly come here because they're running drugs through or involved in crime, I think you can get to a point where you can really protect that. I think if you have families just coming across and trying to, then there's so many people, it becomes difficult. So I think you need a 3-step approach to fix the border, but part of the border is strongly beefing up security as part of that.
Has anyone done a cost analysis on that?
We've looked at it. Certainly, it's not cheap. We're talking about the national debt, and so it's a matter of priority. And we've got to decide what's a priority and what isn't in this country. But the cost of allowing the illegal system to continue is also a burden on our social service agencies and on our communities and whatnot. And so, and police and enforcement. So we enforce it either way. I mean, those states will tell you there's a huge cost to them. And so ultimately, I think we can save money if we get this done right.
Okay. And the state representative, as a state representative, and also now as congressman, you're on appropriations committees. As far as balancing the budget or cutting the deficit, what's been done so far to balance the budget, and are we close to?
Not near as
Are we
close,
close to that point?
Not as close as I would like us to be.
Yeah.
I've been very frustrated with really both political parties in Washington who tell us they're going to work on cutting spending, and then they go and support their own pet initiatives and earmarks and these pork projects that they move forward on. And so we've been fighting that. We have an earmark ban in place in Congress right now to stop any earmarks, so trying to send pork back, bridges to nowhere, that kind of stuff. We've been stopping. The spending rates are still much higher than they need to be. I oppose the recent spending bill that my party put forward because I think it spent too much money. So I've been even critical of my own party.
Are you
when they
for
spent too
or
much
against
money.
a line item for the president as far as spending?
I would be for a line item
Okay.
veto because I think it would allow the president to cut out some of those pork projects or things that have were earmarked or that slipped their way into these bills, and it would help reduce spending. I'm also in favor of a balanced budget amendment. I believe one of the problems we have in place is that we allow Congress to borrow all this money in the first place. States can't do that. They have to balance their budgets every year or they can't adjourn. I think the federal government ought to be required, our members of Congress should be required to go to Washington and give us the hard, cold facts. Tell us the truth. Tell us what the choices are, and then let us decide.
Okay.
Do we want to raise revenue? Do we want to cut spending? Is there a combination? Having that debate is important. Instead, what we do is we just borrow it from our kids and grandkids and leave them with the bill. And I think that's a real travesty. I think it's frankly immoral to leave the next generation with trillions of dollars of our overspending because we refuse to live within our means. And it's going to require some tough choices. We're going to have to give up things, but I think that if we work on it, and we need a long-term perspective. One of the problems Congress has, they just deal with months at a time or a year at a time. I think we need a 10-year plan in place that reforms the tax code, gets rid of all these loopholes that big companies use, that some Americans pay no taxes at all. I think you put all that together, and we need tax reform, simplified tax code that is easier to understand. We ought to have a simplified tax rate.
Right.
This is what I pay, and put everybody in similar categories so that we can make it very simplified and pro-business in a way that supports small business owners who create jobs. That's what I want to focus on. There's some big businesses that don't pay their taxes. I don't think that's right. There's some individuals that don't pay theirs. I want to focus on these small businesses.
Why is it that some big businesses don't pay
because
taxes?
they use the tax code and exemptions and loopholes and these things we place to.
And you're against those?
Yeah, I think we ought to have a tax code in which everybody pays their share,
Right.
And that is in which everybody's helping pull the wagon here.
Would that help keep companies or help bring them back to the United States, those that have gone overseas?
I think if it was simplified and it was a way that had lower overall rates, yes. The corporate tax rate in the United States is 35%. And a lot of people don't know that that's the highest corporate tax rate in the industrialized world. That's higher than China, it's higher than Japan, and we're now competing with these countries for jobs. It's not too hard for a company just to pick up and move their manufacturing plant, overseas. And when their tax rates are lower, their labor costs are lower, but their tax rates are lower, their regulatory costs are lower because they don't get regulated like our businesses do here by the EPA and Department of Labor and OSHA and all these different groups that regulate our business and the IRS. And they have less the cost of doing business. It becomes a very financially advantageous situation.
Right.
So I want to see us lower the overall rates so that we can keep business here, lower the regulatory burden, and frankly, lower the litigation burden. These businesses have to worry about being sued left and right. I think we need tort reform. And so there are all sorts of ways I think we can make the United States a better climate for companies to stay here and create jobs.
Let me ask you about our energy,
Mm-hmm.
and why is fuel right now? Why is it going up so much, and what are we doing, I guess, on a national level to help our energy?
Well, we have a lot of Americans that are struggling to pay their bills right now, particularly people in low-income areas that energy costs are a big part of their check. You know, when you take their electric bill, their gas bill, their fuel bill, those utilities really add up, and that leaves little spending money left at the end of the month. And so we know as gas doubles, that really hurts.
It hurts hard.
It hurts everybody, and it certainly hurts low-income people the most. And so I'm very concerned about the cost of energy in our country. It's why I believe we need to really promote energy independence. Right now, we're dependent on the Middle East and other parts of the world for our energy. And
now that's been talked about, and talked about, and talked about. When are we going to do it?
Well, I think the parties can come together on this. I think
so?
The left pushes more for alternative energy, the right pushes more for traditional energy. I say do both. Why not promote wind energy in places like Kansas that can create a lot of jobs and promote wind energy? Why not promote coal energy around the country? Coal is our most abundant resource in the United States. The fact that folks in Washington are regulating coal plants so much and hitting so hard on coal production really drives up energy rates, and it makes it harder to keep those costs down for folks. And
why is it that what do they
well,
do that?
It's a debate about environmental issues, and I certainly get that. It's important. EPA, yeah, that's important, but we need a better balance there. I think they've overreached, and they're now driving up the cost of energy production in this country. So I just think we need an all-of-the-above approach that involves oil exploration, natural gas exploration, coal. How about nuclear? We haven't built a nuclear plant in the United States since the 70s.
Wow.
If you're not building nuclear plants, if you're not promoting oil drilling in the United States, if you're not promoting coal production in the United States, and you're really just focused on some alternatives, it's no wonder that our energy costs are going up. And there's other things that we've probably seen in the news. The Keystone Pipeline. I'm one who supports the Keystone Pipeline. It creates jobs to construct, and it's the type of energy production that continues our all of the above energy. And the president's talked about all of the above. He may mean different things than maybe I do on that, but I think that means we're talking about the same things. I would love to figure out a way to have both parties come together on a truly pro-energy set of ideas where we push all energy production in this country.
Do you think the parties will ever ever come together on a single issue?
I hold out hope.
Affects everybody, because we certainly look for that and hope for that.
Boy, I sure hold out hope. When you look at our economy, when you look at our spending issues, when you look at immigration reform, when you look at energy production, these issues we've talked about in this interview, all of those are going to require both parties to be involved. Healthcare is another one where I think both parties are going to have to continue to work on it as well. And that's going to mean that both parties are going to have to listen to each other. I'm one of the members of Congress. I haven't signed any of the pledges. I didn't sign the no tax pledge because I want to make sure that I work with both sides on solutions. Now, I don't believe that taxes are necessarily the answer, but I understand there's going to be give and take in solutions we come up with. And my principles I strongly believe in, but I also understand that means that I have to listen to the other side and listen to some of their principles and figure out where we can at least agree. And I think on energy, on immigration, on spending, many of these things are common sense. And if we get out of the elections period and get folks focused on working on solutions as opposed to working on re-election, I think we could get there. Whether they'll do that or not, I don't know. But I'm still new at this. I'm still optimistic. I'm holding out hope we can get there.
And you're one of the lucky ones, because you're not you're running unopposed, so you're getting right back in there. We're ready for you to get back up to Washington to get busy. But I have an important question. Now, we miss we miss you in Wyandotte County, but we understand the office was closed. Now, why is that? Can you tell me why?
Well, we do a lot of work in Wyandotte, Johnson. I have Douglas County in the district right now as well, although redistricting is taking Douglas out, and I have Miami County.
Miami County, Wyandotte County, and Johnson County are now.
It's a very small geographic county. For example, it's just 2.5 counties essentially. The first district in Kansas is 69 counties.
Wow.
Think about that. We're 2.5, it's 69 counties. And my predecessor had 3 offices open. He had an office open in within about 30 minutes of each other. And I just feel, given the economic challenges we're facing, that's fully staffing multiple offices and within such a short driving distance of each other was not really me taking the same advice I was giving others. We're telling agencies they need to cut spending, they need to become more efficient, yet I didn't see our office doing that. So when I took over as the congressman for this district, I said, we're going to cut spending, we're going to eliminate some of these overhead costs, we're not going to reduce services, we're going to be just as attentive, we're just going to eliminate some of the duplication and costs. And so we have one centralized office in northern Overland Park. It serves all areas, and we do satellite office hours where I come out, or the staff comes out and goes to libraries or city offices all around the district, so that we're always available. I do lots of town hall meetings. We just did a forum today here at the Kansas City Kansas Community College.
And we like the accessibility, we like the visibility.
I'm happy to do that stuff. We do telephone town hall meetings. Folks may have been on those before, where we actually call thousands of constituents and put them on a conference call where I can take their questions live. We do emails and letters. In fact, last year alone, the first year, maybe 3 or 4 months that I was in office, we responded to over 100,000 emails, calls, and letters.
Okay.
That's simply amazing, the amount of constituent contacts we do. But I really believe that we have to reform Congress, and that means we've got to cut spending in our own offices. I did that. I gave back 10% of my office budget back to the debt, back to help pay down the debt. And that's something you don't hear very often, of a federal office, without being mandated to do so, cutting their own spending, eliminating certain costs.
Well, we were hoping that it wasn't because you didn't like us.
No, I love Wyandotte County. I love
Okay,
it. I
we
grew up
were
in rural
hoping
Kansas. I live in Overland Park, and I get the chance to represent suburban and urban and even a little bit of rural. And I think I have the best of all worlds. I think I have the greatest district in the country.
Well, thank you.
I really do. But we've been working on trying to cut spending. I've signed on to legislation to cut my own salary.
Okay.
I've signed on to legislation to eliminate lifelong pensions for members of Congress. I don't believe members of Congress deserve pensions when they retire from Congress.
Wow.
And so I've, and don't make a lot of friends in the body by doing that, but I believe that if we're going to dish it out, we've got to be able to take it on those sorts of things. And so Congress needs to lead the charge. And if we're able to cut our own salaries, eliminate some of our benefits, and cut our own office budgets, that would at least show the American people that we're serious about this and we're willing to sacrifice ourselves.
All right. Well, thank you, Congressman, for being with us today. I have enjoyed the interview. Please come back. Please come back.
We will do
Please
it
come
many
back.
times.
We'd love to have you.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us on Conversations. Yeah.